Welcome to our virtual classroom. Join me for some fun learning. Hello, welcome to Storytime. It's Miss Nicole, your host of Legacy Lineage Online Learning. Thank you for joining me. We have a special story time today. So, if you live in America, this is a day called St. Patrick's Day. And on St. Patrick's Day, it is a celebration that people who are of Irish descent or people who live in Ireland, they celebrate. St. Patrick's Day is celebrated with shamrocks and the color green. I brought my co-host with me today. He's a nice green friend. You guys have seen him in story time. And also they do special activities. And so these are called shamrocks or clovers. And so I made this special guy. I'm going to hold him up for you to see. And if you follow Legacy Lineage Online Learning on Instagram, you will see the activity post for our Clever Clover is his name. And this Clever Clover is very special to me. When I was a kid, my great grandma she's born on St. Patrick's Day. So I really love the holiday and I really celebrate it even though I am not of Irish descent. It's still a very important day to me because somebody that I love very much was born on St. Patrick's Day. Anyways, when I was a kid, my great grandmother worked in public school with preschool aged children, and every year they would make a clever clover. And we just took orange paper and I bent it, and then white for his legs because the color of the Irish flag is green, white, and orange. So this is our Clever Clover. You can visit Instagram to see more St. Patrick's Day activities. And so I'm going to start off with dedicating this story time to my grandma whose birthday is on St. Patrick's Day. I will show you my grandma. She's very special to me. Her name is Ethel the Great, and she was such an awesome woman. Her legacy lives on in me, and I honor and celebrate her. So I want to read two stories about grandma. Do you have a grandma, abuela, that you love so much? Grandmas are so special. I even remember an episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, if you ever watched that cartoon, all about his grandma's kisses. So I'm dedicating this double feature to stories about grandma, and then there will also be a story just for St. Patrick's Day and that holiday. All right, here we go. I am reading, look at me, look at me. Time to put the toys away and listen to what I say. 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. This is the front of the books. This is the back of the books. This is the spine. This is the spine. This is the front of the books. This is the back of the books, and this is the spine, and this is the spine. And both of these stories, Grandma and I Love You, Grandma, are the titles. So they both have the word grandma in it. So let's get started. We'll start with this one. I love my grandma. And another word for grandma is abuela. Can you say abuela? Abuela. We have fun together. And oh, my great grandma and I had so much fun together. We went on lots and lots of trips. We ate out to dinner a whole bunch. But one of the main things we did was just to be with each other. So she would be in the living room drinking her coffee, clipping coupons, watching her show, which was The People's Court. And I would be in the living room playing with my Barbie dolls and just sitting with her and just being in her presence. And it says, I love my abuela. We have fun together. Sometimes we're together with family, and sometimes it's just grandma and me. Oh, and my grandma was so awesome at the holidays. She knew how to make such a wonderful, wonderful meal and hospitality, which is the way you treat people when they come into your home. So all of the family and friends who would come over for Thanksgiving and Christmas, it was such a big deal. It was so awesome. But my favorite is when it was just myself and grandma, or grandma and I. When I'm with grandma, we talk about lots of things. We go for walks. So my grandma and I traveled around a lot on the bus because she was older and she didn't drive. So we would walk to the bus stop together, and my grandma could move. I remember she was about 70, maybe 80, but she could walk and move. She would always go out and be in her garden. You can see this little boy right here is with his grandma holding a chicken. Well, my great grandma spent most of her time in her garden, waking up very early and gardening. So I remember that about her. It says we visit very interesting places, and I like it when we take the bus. Look at that. This story is all about the same things I'm telling you about my grandma. One of our favorite places to visit was New York City, especially around Christmas time. I remember being very little, and every year, it was like annually, that means every year around the same time, we would go to New York City and we would go watch the Radio City Music Hall Christmas Spectacular. And the Rockettes would come out, which is a dance group, and you can have your parents Google the Rockettes if you're interested. And they would come out during this Christmas Spectacular and they would kick their legs really high. One of the things I remember is walking around New York bundled up. I remember the smell of chestnuts and what New York smelled like. I remember seeing the huge Rockefeller Center Christmas tree, and I would remember seeing all the people ice skating. I remember warm pretzels with mustard, and when I was a little girl, the fashion was long mink coats. So everywhere around New York, I would see all the fancy different types of mink coat. Brown and white and black, and some had like spots on them, but they were very fancy. My grandma's favorite coat was a trench coat, even though I remember she had like a mink sole, but that was kind of like a fur scarf, but she had a trench coat that she used to always wear. Back to the story. Grandma and I like to help each other, and it says we build our own toys. And look at this little girl. They look like they are in India, and that her grandma is making some type of patchwork down here, and they are working on their own toys together. That's another thing I loved. When I was with my grandma, I spent a lot of time like coloring and making my own things. It made me use my imagination a lot. It says, or work in the garden. That's why I love this story. It reminds me so much of my grandma. And it says, grandma says, I'm a big help. If you spend time with your grandma, I hope that you help her. There is so much to learn from abuelas. There is so much to learn when you are with your grandma, because guess what? They've lived for a long time and they have so much to teach you. What do you like to do with your grandma? In this picture, you can see the little boy and the little girl their grandma is bathing them, right? And this little boy is just smiling at you with his grandma. So I want to give you a chance to think about it. What do you like to do with your grandma? I like to do everything, and most of all, I just remember all of the great memories that I had with my grandma. All right, so let's read our second story. I love my grandma. And these are, what kind of grandmas? Are these people grandmas? No, these are animal grandmas. In the morning, we snuggle nice and tight. My grandma wakes me early in the morning light. I will tell you, my grandma used to get up very early, very, very early. That was the best time to do her gardening because the sun wasn't up, so it wasn't really hot out, and she could go out and get a lot of gardening done. As we make our way to our special place, we nibble and crunch with the sun on my face. My grandma and I had two special places, one being New York City, and the other was anything related to my dancing school. So if we were going to buy new dancing shoes, me going to dancing lessons, like Saturday was a big day, she would make sure I was up and I had my pancakes and I was out to my dance lesson, and then she would come pick me up because that was like shopping day. And after, we would go to a buffet and eat lunch together and shop. And I also remember, which one wasn't really one of my favorite places, is going to the laundromat early Sunday morning. So grandma was an early bird. She would get out early and we would be at the laundromat when it opened, and by the time people were actually starting to come, my grandma would be done with her laundry and we would be back at the house. It says we bounce and play on fields of clover, just like the clever clover that my grandma used to decorate her classroom with. I have a Bible downstairs and it has a picture of my grandma actually hanging the clever clovers in her bulletin board, almost like the board I made back here in her classroom. That's one of my favorite pictures. That's why it's in my Bible. It says, I roll and tumble and she watches over. That's another special thing about grandmas. They have the ability to make you feel safe and keep you safe. And I just want to show you again. I'm going to bring it up close to the camera and I will point out the clovers. See the clovers here? This one has 3 leaves and this one is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3. What do clovers look like? They kind of look like hearts, right? And now I'm going to bring up clever clover. Clever clover. So you can see clever clover. Let's see if I can do this so you guys can see everything without dropping. So here's clever clover with the clovers. Okay, so let's see what the next page says about grandma. When night falls, we cuddle under the glimmering sky. The stars shine bright as she hums a lullaby. The end. And I will tell you what nighttime was like for me with my grandma. So on Friday, she used to make like fish and salad, and I remember watching like the Addams Family and the Munsters. These are old shows, but the point was, she would, after we would eat, she would sit sipping her coffee and clipping coupons and watching her shows, and I would play with my Barbie dolls. But the first, you know what that is? That's a yawn. The first yawn of the night on Friday night, my grandma would say, Nicole, you're tired. Go to bed. And I would say, I'm not tired. And she would say, but you yawned. And so on Friday nights, my grandma always would watch for signs of tiredness because rest is so important to us. Also, because I had to go to bed so I could be up on Saturday morning for my dance lessons. So she always made sure that I got to bed on time and that I was well rested for dancing and for all the errands and fun stuff we were going to do on Saturdays and Sundays. So I hope you enjoyed these stories. Again, this story time is dedicated to my grandma, my great grandma. That means she was my mother's mother's mother. Let's talk about that. So my mother, she made this beautiful quilt. Did you notice that I have a new background during story time today? Do you know my mom made this quilt for me with her own hands? I'm very sentimental and I love stuff like that. So my mom made this quilt for me. My mom's mother is my grandma Will, so she's my grandma. But my great grandma is the one that I showed you in the picture and the one that I've been talking about, whose birthday is on St. Patrick's Day. Ethel the Great, this story time was dedicated to you. Thank you for joining me. See you next time. And remember, you are the you in unique.